Well, good afternoon. I'm Jonathan Sensen. I'm head of Secretariat for the Energy Efficiency Hub, which is a platform for governments to collaborate to raise their game on energy efficiency. So if you're sitting here, you don't need to be convinced that we have a lot to do to improve the way energy is used in our homes, in our workplaces, in our schools, in our conference halls, and in the other buildings where we spend most of our time. So it's a privilege to be able to bring this session to you on energy efficiency for affordable homes and workplaces. It's been a delight to put this together with our colleagues at the IEA, at the European Commission, the Global Alliance for Buildings and Construction, the UK Carbon Trust, the World Green Building Council, and the Partnership for Energy Efficiency in Buildings. Our aim this afternoon is to bring you views from across the world and across public and private sectors on three things: best practices in frameworks, enabling frameworks and strategy, case studies of programs and their replicability, and then after the coffee break, digital solutions, including new approaches and those to improve existing programs. We'll conclude with some forward-looking summary remarks, but first I'm delighted to introduce keynotes from our co-hosts, the IEA and the European Commission. So please join me in welcoming Rosalinda van der Vlies from the European Commission, Director at DG ENER. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and it's a great pleasure to be here, and I think this is really very, very important and timely session, and I'm really honored to be giving a brief keynote to set the scene of what will be a very interesting and insightful afternoon, I'm sure. So as the saying goes, the buildings shape us, we shape the buildings, and we spend so much time inside that it's really important that we make sure that the buildings are really delivering the good indoor quality and that it would actually also give us the right temperature in order to live very comfortably, both during winter and during summer. And even here in Europe, we estimate that almost 50 million people actually cannot afford to properly heat their homes. We often think that energy poverty is something that, does not exist, but even in the European Union, we have staggering numbers, and it is something that we definitely need to fix. And improving our home stock is therefore a big priority also for the European Commission. But it's not only for the people, it's also for the businesses. So let's not forget that improving our building stock is also very good for competitiveness and is also providing lots of job opportunities in the construction sector. In the European Union, the construction sector is responsible for around 9% of our GDP, which is quite impressive. And buildings, of course, are also a huge energy black hole. 40% of our energy use and around half of our gas use alone. And therefore, in Europe, we are really very committed to meeting our 2030 and 2050 decarbonization targets, but for that, buildings are a crucial piece of the puzzle. So I would really like to thank the International Energy Agency, a very trusted partner, for all the great work that they're doing in this area, and in particular, of course, the Energy Efficiency Hub and also the dedicated Energy Efficiency Buildings Task Group. And I'm really very glad to see that there's a lot of progress being made by many of our institutions following the Charlotte Declaration from last year, but also the Global Alliance for Buildings and Construction, the governments, companies, NGOs, and citizens in delivering really concrete building renovation and decarbonization wave on the ground. So in the EU, we want to really meet our objectives, and we have really a comprehensive delivery toolkit already set in place. And this is really structured around national building renovation plans. And these national building renovation plans that each EU member state has to develop is really anchored into the targets, the policies, but also the support measures, including also the financial framework. So end of June, from the Commission side, we will adopt a set of guidance documents to further support practical implementation of all the targets that we have set for the European Union member states on the ground, because the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive is really our crucial and key instrument to deliver what we need for our European Union, for the citizens, and also for our companies. I also hear many positive developments that is triggering private investments. And I think here we really need to do more to combine public and private investments and to step up the level of private investments into this building renovation. So in the run-up to the COP, I'm very confident that also today's session can make a very important contribution to make sure that we deliver on our global pledge on doubling energy efficiency. And I think it's important that we now move to a second phase, practical implementation. And also when it comes to practical implementation, I think there's a lot that we can be doing at the global scale together to set common implementation targets linked to, for example, doubling the renovation wave, or to extend the coverage of the building energy codes. And I really hope that we have a concrete outcome from this afternoon, that by the end of this day we can say, okay, now we are well equipped to move to the COP and to make sure that there will be very concrete implementation commitments made by as many countries as possible to make this all a reality. So thank you very much again, and I'm really looking forward to very practical and concrete discussions and operational conclusions from this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rosalinda. And so now I'd like to ask Brian Motherway, a man who needs no introduction, plays a unique role in the world's efforts to improve energy efficiency, to provide his keynote. Brian?
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here. And it really, one of the great things for me personally about doing these events is our ability to collaborate, engage with many individuals who are doing great work in this space and many organizations. So in terms of our very close relationship with the Energy Efficiency Hub and the privilege we have in hosting the Secretariat, and of course our great friends in the Commission, and the many organizations involved in this, including the Green Building Council and PEEB and Global ABC and all the others, we're delighted to be part of this and to be seeing this topic. And I'm personally delighted to see the focus on buildings and particularly affordability as we're seeing, because I think one of the themes running through these 2 days, and it's not a coincidence that we've aligned some meetings around energy efficiency with meetings on people-centered transitions and affordability in those dimensions, because we have to remember always, when we talk about energy efficiency policies, clean energy policies, why are we doing these? These are not about, okay, we have metrics around emissions reduction and energy savings and import reduction, but all of those are a means to an end, which is better quality of life for people, better socioeconomic outcomes for people all around the world, particularly those who need uplifts the most. And that's what all of energy and climate policy is ultimately about. And in that sense, buildings are really the cutting edge of clean energy policies, because we talk about, every country here, I'm sure you're having a debate on whether it's called energy transitions or net zero policies, and there's debates to and fro about, are these policies a good thing? Are we going too slowly? Are we going too fast? And what does it mean for the ordinary person, and what does it mean for people in their employment, in their homes? And let me say two things about that. Firstly, When we think about transitioning the energy system from what we have today to a clean, sustainable one, we are also transitioning to an affordable and fair one, because that is not our starting point. The energy system today is neither particularly affordable or fair for very many people around the world. The hundreds of millions of people who have no access to electricity whatsoever, the billions of people who rely on polluting and burdensome clean cooking every day of their lives, and there are significant proportions of populations in every part of the world, including here in Europe, who struggle to afford energy and end up going cold or warm or going without because they can't afford as much energy as they would like to use and as we would like to see them use in an affordable and sustainable manner. So a transition is an opportunity for change, and therefore an opportunity for fixing many issues with today's energy system, and affordability and fairness should be very much part of that. Secondly, when you speak to anybody about what is your experience of a net zero energy policy or a clean energy policy, first of all, that language obviously doesn't mean much to the vast majority of people, which is perfectly fair. But when you do explain what you mean, they probably think, oh, is that about the wind turbines, or is that about the overhead transmission lines, or is that what's causing my energy bill to go up, or is that why there's a queue at the petrol station? They have all these kind of touch points that might feel like their interaction with energy policy and with clean energy policy. But actually, for most people who have been lucky enough to benefit from a better insulated home because building codes are good, a more efficient washing machine because even if they knew it or not, they bought a more efficient one that was subject to higher levels of standards, is therefore cheaper to run. Somebody who benefited from a retrofit grant to upgrade their home. Somebody who is able to afford an air conditioner because they can now afford to pay the electricity because it is much more efficient than previous models. These are the real experiences of clean energy transitions or net zero policies on the ground. And I think we're doing a very poor job at communicating that, because I think far more people have benefited from those kind of policies and programs and measures than actually we remember to articulate, and that they realize that's what we mean when we're talking about improving our global energy systems, switching to renewables, switching to much greater levels of efficiency, and bringing affordability, security, resilience, and of course addressing climate change along with that. And I think that's why it's really important we keep the focus on the here and now, that energy efficiency offers these opportunities to make people's lives better quickly, while also rapidly reducing emissions, improving competitiveness, reducing bills, and buildings is the perfect place to start. I'm clearly not the only person who thinks like this, and one actor who thinks like this and has really led on this is our good friends in the Canadian government, who are the president of G7 this year, and they have been leading on the question of energy affordability, and I commend Ben and you and all of your colleagues for the work you've done on this, and we've been very privileged to be able to collaborate with Canada to produce a new report on affordability measures for energy and homes across the G7, which we are proud to launch today along with our Canadian friends. And this is just an insight into what a certain number of countries are doing that is really interesting in terms of programs to make energy more affordable, ranging from retrofit programs to insulation schemes to pay-as-you-go schemes to incentives, regulations, all the different measures that again are having these tangible outcomes for populations that are benefiting directly. So I'm hoping we'll get many more of those insights today. I really think it's going to be a very interesting session. I'm really pleased that we're able to give it this attention as part of the 10th Annual Global Conference. So I want to thank you, Jonathan, for hosting us today. Thanks to all the partners in this session, and thank you all for being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Brian. And with that, let's launch into our first panel on frameworks, best practices for implementing building energy efficiency. And so I'd like to ask our first speakers to please come up and join me on stage. From the World Green Building Council, we have the CEO, Christina Gamboa. From from Efficient Buildings Europe, Julie Kiestrup, the president, whom I'm sure is a friend to many of you. We have Mr. Zhang Fang, who's the Deputy Director of the Center of Science, Technology, and Industrialization Development from China's Ministry of Housing and Urban Rural Development, and the aforementioned Ben Kopp, who's Director General of the Office of Energy Efficiency at Natural Resources Canada. So each of you has prepared some remarks. So we'll hear from each of you, and then, time permitting, we'll go into a little bit more depth. So Christina.
Okay. Oh, I
please.
thought, okay. I wanted to hear about the countries. No, it's fine. Thank you so much, and thank you, Jonathan, and hello, fellow panelists. Hello, everyone. I cannot see you with all those lights. I hope you're doing well, and just after lunch, that you had a coffee and that you're switched on. Because I think what I would like to say in this important conference is, in a way, it's such an important moment where we, of course, are not only focusing on the supply of energy, but we're looking at who's demanding it and using it, and we're going to go deeper into that. And in a way, as we now have learned with the energy transition, no kilowatt hour is created the same, and I heard that from the CEO of Octopus Energy. I'm not going to steal it, but it's really good. Not every kilowatt hour is created the same, and it's sometimes in that space, if we're generating from fossil fuels and with solar, at some point we have to continue to divest, right? But we cannot waste the energy we've generated. And in that way, buildings are precisely that intersection of energy that we're wasting. That is what, when we're talking about energy efficiency, actually we're talking about not every building is created the same as those kilowatt hours. And by that we mean we have at least today, 70% of the stock that exists today will still be with us by 2050. And that means they have not all been created the same. They have been designed maybe at a moment where there was not a great building energy performance code, or they're absolutely fantastic and they are already being part of this grid responsive buildings that are giving back energy to the network, and we're in the next frontier of buildings being part of the energy system. And I think that's where the world will be going. But in the meantime, we are dealing with a scenario of that we still have to retrofit, renovate what exists, so we stop wasting energy and we improve people's livelihoods. And second, what is going to be built around the world, particularly in emerging markets that are still urbanizing at a very high rate, we have to do our best efforts with everyone in the room, the 100 countries, to make sure that the 100 countries that don't have energy performance-based codes adopt them as soon as possible. Because what we're happening today around the world is that we are just locking in inefficient assets that will continue to waste energy. So there will not be enough energy transition in the world to use the wastage of energy that is going to happen in buildings if we don't think about what does that mean for us as a society, which is a failure in the system, but second, what it means for people that are suffering from energy poverty, being cold, or now being too hot. And what we learned throughout the conference also is the lack of appropriate labeling that is also impacting, for example, the consumption of cooling. And we need cooling, but we will need to be better at the labeling across the system. So even though buildings are at the intersection, the other thing I've heard in these few days is systemic thinking that will get us there. And we heard also yesterday from the introduction, investment in energy efficiency. We need to double that figure to be able to get to that commitment the countries did to double the rate of energy intensity. And so with that, we have to really collaborate to mobilize the finance. And for that, we really need finance to be understanding what can be financed in a more scalable way. Right now, there is not that great clarity of how can we mobilize that finance at scale. And of course, it's great that governments step up by their plans for improving their procurement, leading by example by having energy efficient offices and governments, improving affordable homes policies, which is absolutely indispensable for equity and for not only for efficiency, and of course making sure that all the systems enabling digitalization, that citizens are empowered to take control and have information to know what they use, but also to go in that stage. And so from the World Green Building Council, I think with the work we've done, for example, in the Building Life project in Europe, we've aligned at least 12 green building councils in all the shape up to the EPBD. They did whole life carbon roadmaps to decarbonize their built environments, rallying stakeholders, understanding what needs to happen first. And you will all be very smart in the room. What needs to happen first? Energy efficiency. Because we have to first reduce demand, improve the quality of the design, improve the quality of the performance, and think whole life cycle to make this get to the other line. And with that, and with the landscape of improving regulation, that will enable the critical investment signals for the private sector to figure out the innovative finance with the finance community to scale up that investment to a place where eventually we can de-risk the investments and get them to the scale we need. And yeah, I think it's really encouraging that we're all committed to collaborate to each other, hear each other out, and I'm looking forward to learning from you as we hear the case studies and what's worked. So we also, in our different associations, can take it around the world. At World GBC, we have 75 green building councils, and I am keen to mobilize those 48,000 companies that are behind those GBCs to a better spot where we deliver also on our part. Thank you.
Well, Christina, thank you so much for enumerating the elements of the global transformation of the building stock. There's, I would say, a lot to unpack there. Let's now move to the level of Europe, and Julie.
Yeah,
You're
indeed.
up.
And thank you so much for inviting us to be here. I'm from Efficient Buildings Europe. We're Brussels-based, so thank you to everyone for coming to our hometown. It's really important for us to have the IEA and the Commission coming together at this moment in time to really sort of underline the importance of efficiency, and especially in the built environment. So we heard a lot of numbers today, but thankfully I took two with me. I don't think we've heard so far. One is the same as yours, 75. But in Europe, that's the percentage of buildings today that don't have the energy performance they ought to be having. Mm-hmm. And then we have a number that's bigger, which is 85, and that's a percentage of today's buildings in Europe that will still be standing in 2050. And I say that because, of course, buildings and building cultures and building needs are incredibly regional, national. But here in Europe, that means that we mostly don't need to think outside the box, actually. We need to reinvent the boxes we already have, right? And if any of you have got kids, then, you know, you've probably at some point wanted to throw out an old box, and the kid is like, no, but that's my Ford, or no, that's my car, right? And that's what we need to be able to do as well here in Europe. We need to be much better at seeing these opportunities of probably renovating or repurposing the buildings that we already have, so that building can go from office space to housing, so you can create extra living room under the roof, and so on and so forth. And of course, to do that, you know, we're not actually kids, right? So we can't just stick things to the sides and hope that it holds. So we need some instructions for that. And thankfully here in Europe, we have that too. And again, it was mentioned just in the beginning of the session, we have the energy performance of buildings directive, and if we implement that on time and correctly, then it actually addresses a lot of our current challenges. And I can hear myself saying stuff that's been said a lot over these past 2 days, and that's good, I think, because it means that we're all clear on where the challenges are. One thing that almost everyone has mentioned is the need for the policy predictability, and that's important for us, certainly as industry. I represent 16 private companies in our association, but it's also really important for building owners, because we're asking these people to undertake big works at big cost, and we owe it to them to help them plan their renovation projects. And by the way, when the Commission said earlier today that the renovation rate needs to double, that's a very optimistic reading, because it's true that the renovation rate is around 1%, but deep renovation, which is what we need, is currently about 0.2% in Europe, just for perspective. And so where is it the EPBD can help then? I mean, so the EPBD recast requires member states to draft these national building renovation plans, aligning, and again, she mentioned it, national targets, measures, and funding. And if these are done correctly, then they can become the sort of roadmaps we need to ensure structured cooperation between the different parts of the building's ecosystem. The other thing that's really important, again, coming back to the point, we're asking people to do a lot of work here, is reliable information, and that we build people's trust in the guiding tools that we're putting out, such as the energy performance certificates. People need to have faith in the system and faith in the information they're receiving in terms of that being the most appropriate information for them where they are. And one really powerful thing of the EPBD that sounds boring, but it's very important, are these one-stop shops. And what they are shops that can provide people, customers, building owners, consumers with information on how to go about their project, how do we do an integrated approach, and how do we best fund it. And there is a specific focus here on the most vulnerable consumers. Very important, because as mentioned earlier today, there is also in Europe a growing number of people who just don't live in homes that suit their needs. They can't afford to pay for them, and they deteriorate their health. So what can we then do as Efficient Building Europe? We have been here, we're working with many of the people in the room, but we can also really bring more people together. One of the things we've been doing for many years is to run a campaign called Renovate Europe. The clue's sort of in the name. It's about sort of upping the renovation rate across Europe, and we work at European level, but also in member state level. We have just shy of 50 partners and 18 national initiatives. And one of the big things we do is to exchange best practice. We just, a few months ago, released a guide on the EPBD implementation, which I recommend for everyone, whether you're an EU country or not, because it gathers a lot of best practice. And I took with me a couple of those points, because what we find is really useful in our network is just to make sure that people out there hear and get inspired by what others have done. So France, for instance, they've made sure that the people who issue these EPC certificates are actually liable for their assessments. That sounds really banal, but it's obviously very important. The people out there need to be able to trust, the certificate they're doing. Czechia, meanwhile, they launched, they call it the Renovate Grandma home program, where they're basically using revenues from the carbon market to provide subsidies, and they also partner with private banks to set up loans at a really affordable interest rate. And again, these are very sort of practical ideas that may or may not work for your context, but at least you can be inspired from it. And what do we then need? I mean, we need attention. We need to be in this room, and we are, but we also need to reach all the people who are not in this room. And that, I think, is still an issue for our community, and we've talked about it at length. And then we need not just cooperation, but structured cooperation. And one really promising example for us in the built environment is the new focus on housing and affordable housing at the Commission, but also the way the Commission has gone about it, because they've put together a task force that unites peoples from across different Director Generals, thereby creating a really holistic approach. And that is really key to succeeding, because at the end of the day, everything we do here should end and start with people. It's called the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. It ought, in my mind, to be called the People Performing in Buildings Directive, because at the end of the day, we do it for people, and we also need the people to execute the agenda. And on that final point, one thing we really need here in Europe, and again, we're working on it, but there's much more to do, is skilled workers. We know that we're short already. We know a lot of the skilled workers will retire in a couple of decades to come. And we are filling up from the ranks with the youth, but there is also a huge number of workers here in Europe, around 5 million actually, we think, who need some level of retraining in the decades to come, because my kid might be a hope for the future by 2050, but the people sitting here, we're the ones who need to put us on the right path in the next years to come. Thank you so much.
Well, Thank you so much, Julie, for providing that view from industry of how the work that you're doing integrates with what the EPBD. That is, I think, it's hard to think of a better example of public-private coordination in rolling out policy. Now, let's go to the national level and over to Asia. Zhang Feng, let's hear what you have to say from China.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very glad to be invited by the International Energy Agency to participate in this seminar. Currently, building has become one of the main areas of energy efficiency and carbon reduction in China. Accelerating the promotion of energy efficiency and carbon reduction in the buildings is of great significance for achieving carbon peak and carbon neutrality. and promoting high-quality development. In March 2024, the work plan for accelerating energy efficiency and carbon reduction in building is issued. It clarified the implementation pace of energy efficiency and carbon reduction in building and set 12 key tasks. In the new buildings, it is required to strictly implement mandatory standards for building energy efficiency, accelerate the large-scale development of ultra-low energy buildings, and increase the proportion of star-rate green buildings and existing buildings. It is proposed to conduct a comprehensive survey of urban existing buildings, accelerate the energy efficiency renovation of existing buildings, ensure that the energy efficiency of residential buildings meets current standards, and improve the overall internal efficiency of public buildings without energy saving measure by more than 20% after renovation. In terms of building and energy consumption, it is clear to increase the promotion of high efficiency and energy-saving household appliances and other equipment. Promote the construction of digital and intelligent operation and management platforms for buildings. Improve the level of building electrification, promote the comprehensive electrification of new public buildings, and increase the popularization rate of electrification for residential heating, domestic hot water, cooking, and so on. Though the implementation of the above key tasks, by the end of this year, new urban buildings in China will fully implement green building standards, with electricity consumption accounting for over 45% of building energy consumption, and renewable energy substitution rate of 8% for urban buildings. Compared to 2023, the area of newly built ultra-low energy and new zero energy buildings will increase by another 20 million square meters, and the area of energy-saving renovation of existing buildings will increase by another 200 million square meters. Based on this, in the next 5 years, China will continue to vigorously promote energy efficiency and carbon reduction in the building, continuously improve energy utilization efficiency and reduce carbon emissions, and promote growth progress in energy efficiency and carbon reduction. Thank you.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Zhang. It's given that it's well known that China has been the leader in new build. To hear that so much of the program is of China's program is devoted towards existing buildings is also really cheering. So let's move then across the Pacific to Canada. Ben, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jonathan, and again, thank you to both the IEA and the European Commission for hosting this good event. Fantastic event. And I think Brian, in his comments, kind of highlighted this, and I think the importance of combining, and I was lucky enough to attend the ministerial discussions for both people-centered transition as well as the discussion on energy efficiency. But really to be able to see those two discussions happen back to back, I think was quite profound to me, and again continues to really drive home the importance of focusing on people as part of this transition. So I think big compliments to the combination of those events, and again, I can't see anyone out there in the crowd, but I think the importance of the conversations that we're having along the way through these events are also really important. And again, thanks to Brian for complimenting Canada and its work, and certainly energy efficiency is really important in the Canadian context, and I think has been demonstrated through the programs that we have put forward, the initiatives and the work that we've done in this space over the last number of years, and certainly it's really nice to see kind of the approach that we're taking and the importance as it lines up with focus points for the IEA and around competitiveness, certainly around our climate objectives. Energy security might mean a different thing in Canada, maybe coming closer to what it might mean in Europe right now as well, but certainly the big focus on affordability. Really happy right now as well as we look to host next week G7 countries in Canada, and obviously energy being a big part of those dialogues. And as we continue to advance conversations, again, energy efficiency being a significant part of the energy dialogue, which again, makes us quite happy within the energy efficiency space. Again, focusing on the areas that I already mentioned, but also with a big focus on affordability. So I think really important through the G7 that we have a chance to really profile the importance of coming together on these issues, and also on the multiple benefits of energy efficiency. We've talked at in various fora, energy efficiency can be hard to touch and feel sometimes maybe, and I think really being able to shine that spotlight on the multiple benefits is something that I think we look as really important through fora like the G7, but also much broader fora such as this. Also really happy, and again, thanks to Brian for referencing this in his remarks, but we really used our G7 platform as an opportunity to work with the IEA on a report on affordability, which I do encourage you all to read. There is some hard copies that were floating around here, but it is now online as well too. And I think that report really able to look across, in this context of G7 countries, on sort of the targeted approaches being taken to support affordability through energy efficiency. And I think it really looks at specific initiatives, and I'll touch on a few of these today from the Canadian context in terms of what these approaches are, but also on the measurable outcomes that are being achieved through these initiatives. And I think it's not meant to shine a spotlight on how well we're all doing, but what we can learn from the work that we've done already and where we do need to be going across a number of different initiatives. What the report does highlight from our context is some of the key initiatives that we have undertaken over the past number of years. $6 billion since 2018, we have invested in initiatives to retrofit homes. And I'll talk about this as I kind of get to the end of my presentation. You might think that's a big number, maybe you think that's a small number, but really it has enabled us to see a bit of an evolution in our program suite, which I think is really important. We've done a lot of work in building codes. In Canada, we don't have jurisdiction from the federal level. What we do have is the ability to develop model building codes. And by developing those and continuing to evolve them, in 5-year increments, we're able to kind of set the kind of the floor, but also help to set the ambition for jurisdictions across the country that have the ability to implement codes. And in doing that, we've developed the Canada's Codes Acceleration Fund, which provides grants and funding to again jurisdictions across the country to aim to achieve higher tiers of the building code, which has been quite successful and something that we want to continue to see success in. We continue to strengthen our regulatory environment. And we just before we called the election in Canada a couple of months ago, we put forth the 18th amendment to our energy efficiency regulations. This was the third largest amendment that we were able to put forward in our regulatory space. And just to give you a sense of kind of the number of amendments that we were put forward, well, not on the number, but on the impact. In 2050, we would be able to, through those amendments alone, be able to power almost 11 million homes for the period of 1 year. And that, to me, is quite a staggering number. And again, those are impacts you're going to kind of continue to see over time. But those amendments are things that we're doing annually to continue to sort of make sure the worst products or the lowest performing products are out of the marketplace, and continuing to support affordability for Canadians, through our regulatory environment. Lastly, in terms of sort of core initiatives, the Canada Green Building Strategy. I'll just touch on this very briefly. One point that was raised earlier by Christina was the importance of labeling. And we do really see this as a really important part of our green building strategy in Canada, and really see it sort of as an important element to better support. One common theme that I've heard throughout these last couple of days is the importance of leveraging financing. And I think having a common approach to labeling, supports us kind of in a world where we're able to secure not just government financing, but financing out in the private sector, also to support the insurance, which continues to become kind of more important in our space. Deep retrofits as well, and that was something that you touched on as well, Julie. And I think that has been a major focus for us in the Deep Retrofit Accelerator Initiative, and really looking at the launch of this in 2023 to support kind of a concierge service for building owners. And a big part of that initiative was in multi-unit high-rise buildings, certainly buildings where a lot of low-income Canadians do live, to better educate building owners, to create a network of retrofit accelerators that are able to educate building owners on the importance of how to access financing, on the importance of doing retrofits at a deeper level, to support those buildings and being able to create a more affordable environment for those living within those buildings. And, through all of this, it's really been a recognition of, developing programs that meet kind of both, the financial and sort of non-financial needs of those that are most in need in Canada. And, we've learned through the development of our programs. And I'll just kind of give you a bit of a progression of our core programs over the last about 5 or so years that kind of shows, I think, how we've kind of learned and continued to adapt our programming. Coming out of the pandemic, we launched the Canada Greener Homes Grant Program. This was a north of $2 billion program focused on, providing grants to homeowners to do energy efficiency upgrades in their homes. Part of the funding that we provided was to do an energy audit of the home, and then people would go and do a retrofit and then come and seek the dollars up to $5,000 per homeowner from the government. It was a very successful program. It served a lot of homeowners, put a lot of heat pumps in homes, did a lot of insulation, but really it was a program that served middle to upper class Canadians. You had to get the audit done, pay for that up front. You had to get do the retrofits, probably people who were doing a lot more in their homes, and then come and seek the money from the government. So it worked really well, got a lot of attention out there for energy efficiency, but wasn't really serving our lower income Canadians. Then we saw really recognized a need for people that were heating their homes on oil in Canada, and we developed the oil to heat pump affordability program, which again provided funding to homeowners to convert off of oil into an electric heat pump. What we really tried to do through this is really partner with our provincial jurisdictions to leverage money. So having initiatives already in place in those jurisdictions, leverage the federal money to almost get to the point, and for a lot of jurisdictions, the full cost of heat pumps in homes. We provided those grants up front, seeing a real sort of gap in terms of supporting lower income by not sort of coming to seek the money afterwards, but providing that money up front. Again, served, I think, a really important purpose, but we were still kind of missing some of our most in-need communities. Indigenous communities communities in particular in Canada is where some of the most significant needs are, and again, continue to be a gap based on the very sort of specific aspects of the program. So as part of our Canada Green Building Strategy, we launched the Canada Greener Homes Affordability Program, which again is being exclusively delivered by our provincial and territorial jurisdictions in Canada, and also providing funding directly to Indigenous communities at a distinctions level. So not us providing a program where they would apply to it, but providing funding to our communities and letting them spend the money in the way that makes the most sense for them in support of energy efficiency and making their homes more affordable. And doing this program sort of through all provincial jurisdictions, again, taking out the federal role except for providing funding, leveraging provincial funding, and having provinces deliver those programs within their own program structure, and doing it through direct installation, working directly with contractors, taking homeowners out in the lower income who might have a more challenging time figuring out how to apply to programs, doing it as a one-stop shop for those homeowners. And that program is just being launched right now with our jurisdictions. We're very excited about that. And again, it shows kind of the evolution, I think, in the learning of how we can have continued to evolve. We have a long way to go in Canada. We recognize that. We continue to take incremental steps, and it's events like this that help us to really learn how others are doing things. And I thank all of the panelists for their leadership and everyone else for their leadership on energy efficiency. Thank you.
Great. Ben, thank you very much. What I hear from that is, in terms of good practice, is learning from the results of policy and then seeing how it evolves to better achieve your aims, and also placing the funds at the subnational level where implementation is taking place, putting it closer. So we're actually starting to cut into the next session, but I didn't want to end. Christina, you mentioned that you wanted to hear what the other speakers had to say. So I'm curious on your reflections, and in particular, what you heard that could enable a focus on affordability.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. Victim of my words.
Yeah.
I'm very inspired by what I heard from the speakers, because what I'm hearing is a vision from having a progressive energy efficiency policy. The Energy Performance Buildings Directive in Europe starts with ambitious energy efficiency policies that are being mainstream. It's the era of implementation in that space. What we heard from China, it's also the era of implementation. We're not longer spelling out what are we going to do, you're doing. And at a scale where it's improving livelihoods in a way where you're also aware that the homes and the infrastructure that is being built out as China continues to urbanize is high quality and efficient from the start. And that is fantastic news for all of us in the room. And finally, Ben, well, it's no surprise from Canada, you're very articulate in how the efficiency program runs through. And it's all the layers from being sensitive to the Indigenous populations, to the communities that need it most, but also going for the big wins of the retrofits in the commercial space that you're unlocking the gains throughout the different typologies, but in a very ambitious and structured way. So in even going back to the opening of the conference, we're no longer in the era of calling more ambition and action. We're in the era of implementation. And from the affordability side, I guess as all these examples continue to unlock ways to work with the finance community and scale up, be creative on the financial instruments, green mortgages at scale, the instruments to continue to monetize the savings and benefit the consumers, be it giving a grant and getting consumers also having a little bit of the benefit, but monetizing through ESCO models. The rest is quite promising, and that's the way to do it, because it's a win-win. It's no longer an energy efficiency concept, it's an energy efficiency industry that is materializing. So I think it's very promising. And in terms of the affordability question, of course, there has to be instruments to facilitate the journey, not also to put the burden on a different stakeholder. And that sensitivity of the policymakers of how to be creative in the era of restrictions, because everyone has a restriction in their budget, but continue to focus on the segments of society that need it most, but also not losing sight of where the big wins from the reducing the energy demand and creating a more prosperous future lies. So yeah, that sounds what I heard.
Well, thanks very much. We'll go in a moment to more deeply into particular cases of programs. But Christina, Julie, Changfeng, and Ben, thanks very much. And a round of applause for our panel, please.
Thank you.
Okay. So for our next panel, we'll be hearing from Mexico, from India, from Australia, and an African perspective as well. So if I could ask our next panel to come up and join me on stage. We have from GIZ Mexico, Liliana Campos Arriaga, who's head of programs for energy efficiency refurbishment of social housing. Please. We have Gyan Prakash Upadhyay, Director General of the Electric Power Transmission Association. Claire McLaughlin, who heads the Energy Performance and Security Division in Australia's Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment, and Water, such a narrow scope. And then from the African Energy Commission, we have Rashid Ali Abdallah, who's the Executive Director. Thanks very much. And let's start with you, Liliana. Tell us what's happening in Mexico.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you for the opportunity for being part of this conversation. I would like to share a specific case study from Mexico that shows that when you join technical assistance, focused, targeted technical assistance with tailored financial solutions, you can achieve impacts that are measurable. But I am not only talking about reducing energy consumption, I am also talking about improving life conditions. But first, I want to touch upon something that Brian said at the start of this session, that was why buildings, and this was meant for my closing remarks, but I think the key of buildings is that they address strictly global agendas. The new urban agenda, because when you are tackling existing buildings and you are retrofitting buildings, you are also improving, of course, the urban settlements and the life conditions of the people. It also supports, buildings also support the just energy transition, let's say like in social housing, by ensuring that families are not left behind, especially low-income families, and as Ben said, other minority groups. And we place them at the center of the decision-making and the benefit sharing. And buildings also directly delivers on the climate agenda, cutting emissions on one of the hardest sectors that need to be tackled while improving resilience and well-being. So with that, I will want to share this example in Mexico that you're seeing now, I hope, yes, on the pictures. We started with a pilot program of 30 housing units in two of the most hottest cities in Mexico, in the north of the country, Mexicali and Hermosillo. It was a small but ambitious pilot program, and the houses became like living laboratories to test the solutions that went from a very basic step, just changing appliances, to deep retrofits, including mechanical ventilation with heat recovery, photovoltaics, airtight nets, and so on. So basically, what we try to do is to meet the families where they were regarding the depth capability they had, but also the technical knowledge and what they wanted from their homes. When you go with to a social housing and you speak with the family, you realize that they don't really know, like, this is the technology that I want, but they know the condition that they don't want to suffer anymore. They know they are overheated. They know they need, the high levels of humidity or so on, and then you help them where they are to fit their these technical solutions. The good thing about this pilot program is that, well, it was a success, and then we roll out for the full implementation with the help of a trust fund that's called FIPATERM in Mexico. And by the end of 2023, we had already 7,300 homes that had been retrofitted in Mexico. And that's more or less 29,500 people that we touch and improve their lives and their living conditions. So it's not only the technical solution that is important, it's also how you approach the people to convince them and give them arguments and information to take the informed decisions and start refurbishing their homes. Normally, we always have some other priorities from the kids to the school, and energy efficiency, as Ben said, is something that is not seen, really. No, it's something like invisible. It's not tangible, and it's difficult to convey to people to invest in that. Last week, I had a call with FIPATERM, and I've been told that we are now getting close to 10,000 homes that have already been refurbished. So the scope of the program, I said, is not just technology. It was social inclusion, workforce training, digitalization. They were all in the center. We developed a platform for giving more information to the families and regarding how they can choose the renovation technologies. Despite the success of this program, we still are facing some barriers. And from GIZ, we know it is very long-term, a long-term road that you need to be working with this. So in this new program the Partnership for Energy Efficiency in Buildings, we have a program that is called PILCOOL, and it's implementing in Mexico as well. And we are trying to build into the lessons learned with this social housing program, along with our colleagues in AFD, and bringing these barriers that are high upfront cost, limited skilled labor, and lengthy implementation times to tackle those barriers that we detected in this program previously. So Mexico has already enablers in place. We still have to be working on. We just recently published the sustainable taxonomy in Mexico, and then the financing products like green mortgages are growing there. We have an active network of professionals and chambers that are ready to scale in action. We are very good friends with the Green Building Council, and we are just sumando fuerzas, no? Like SUME, we are adding strengths to tackle this issue. And basically what we need now is a catalytic finance to go to scale. And I am trying to hear all of your stories and see if we are in the same page in all the different countries. Jonathan.
Well, Liliana, thank you very much. That's a really inspiring example of starting, designing a program around the user experience and taking a multifaceted approach, not just a simple technical fix to one part of the family's problems that you're trying to resolve. So let's then move over to India, and Mr. Padye. Please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so good afternoon and namaste. I bring the greetings from people of India to Brussels. Thanks very much for giving us this opportunity. India, as you know, is a very large country like China, and we heard about China, and I'm going to tell you about India. So whatever happens in India and China will definitely be, the world will be looking forward to hearing from India and China what they are doing. So I will talk about grid interactive buildings, which is an initiative that is going to be started. It has already been started, in fact, in India. And I represent an organization called Electric Power Transmission Association, EPTA, which is actually it's an association of leading transmission companies of India, set up by Ministry of Power, Government of India. And this EPTA is already we boast of a very smart grid in India. I mean, it's running from length and breadth of the country. So, some parts of the country are producing a lot of solar power now. And our Honorable Prime Minister has led a very ambitious goal of, 500 gigawatt of renewable energy by 2030. The buildings consume about 30% of the energy currently, and the demand is going to be tripled 3 times by 2047. So renewables are going to play a very big role. Now, the renewable power that is being produced in India, basically in western and central part of India, which are very, very warm areas, has to be wheeled into other parts of the country. So the grid is already in place, but then the new program of grid interactive building has been launched, where a building will be producing it will no longer be a passive consumer of the electricity. It will be a kind of prosumer. It will be producing solar power as well as consuming power from the grid. But then for that to happen seamlessly and without any hiccups, both the building and the grid has to be responsive to each other. So there is surge of power during daytime, and then evening there is dearth of power. So the systems have to be rolled out in such a way that whenever there is a power being put into the grid by the building, the grid is able to take it, and whenever there is a power requirement in the building, it can draw from the grid. So this concept has been pioneered, and a national level task force has been constituted by Ministry of Power, in which we are a part of it. It is being mentored by Mr. Nandan Nilekani, who has been the architect of earlier Infosys, and thereafter the Aadhaar, the unique identification number for every Indian. So this is going to involve a lot of smart systems. The grid has to be smart. The homes have to be very smart. The smart metering program has been rolled out, and it is being already installed in different parts of the country. So India being a federal country, the states are being involved in this initiative. And we expect that, with the new building code has been passed in 2024, the smart building code. So all the buildings are going to adopt this, the new buildings, the existing buildings, the energy efficiency and grid interactive potential has to be increased. So to roll out a pilot, let's say a pilot in an area which represents a typical neighborhood, what we have planned is there is a institute in Delhi, which is Indian Institute of Technology, IIT Delhi, one of the premium technological institutes in Delhi. It has got a campus of about 400 acres. So that campus, we are going to make it grid interactive. It has got commercial spaces. It has got residential area. It has got other kinds of institutional areas, recreational areas. So this campus very soon will be turned into a grid interactive neighborhood. And then the program will be expanded to cover the entire part of the city of Delhi, as well as other parts of the country. So basically what I'm trying to say is that the rooftop solar installations have gone ahead, and it is progressing at a very fast pace. People are adopting it because government is providing subsidy also for this. The consumers, because India is a very price conscious country, a very large country where the average income is not very high, people are actually need to be incentivized to adopt such programs, which government is doing. So once they are able to save energy and energy bills, they will be encouraged to adopt this. Also in the beginning, when they're going to install the solar power systems, rooftop systems on their homes, it is also being subsidized by the government to some extent, so that people are able to install them without any problem, and then they are able to recover the cost over a period of time. So basically, the Electric Power Transmission Association is going to play a very pivotal role, because the entire grid of the country, which is there, our Prime Minister has already given a slogan of one sun, one earth, one grid. And very soon we are going to have the grid extended to subsea cable to the islands of India, which are closer to India, under the control of India. And then finally to the eastern part of the country and western part of the country, because sun is shining all the time. Only thing is that wherever it is not shining, the power can be wheeled from the areas where it is shining. So this is the concept of GIB, which we are very proud to be part of it. And it is expected to bring at least 25 to 30% of saving on the power consumed, which is going to impact our carbon emission and substantially reduce it over a period of time. Our aim is to become completely carbon neutral by 2070, which we are very confident that we'll be able to achieve it much before that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that view into a really important pilot project well, it sounds like it's necessary in order for buildings to be able to meet the new smart building code. Having that, putting that code in place to help to drive the innovation necessary in finance as well, and I think particularly coming from in a setting where affordability is
Very important.
very important. Absolutely, will be. I'm personally keen to hear the results of that at next year's conference here. So, Claire, let's go across the Indian Ocean down to Australia.
Thanks, Jonathan. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. I missed last year's one of these, but I was at the one in Versailles the year before, and it's always such a fantastic opportunity to find out what other countries are doing and what's working and what isn't, and it's great to be able to be part of that conversation. There are so many rabbit holes I'd be very keen to go down, listening to my colleagues from India and Canada talking about the vagaries of federal systems and building codes in those, but I'll try not to. I wanted to give an example of a building from the Australian experience. So I think there's a picture of it on a slide. There we are, beautiful. So this is the Key Quarter Tower, which is our sort of best demonstrator of a whole lot of things that we're trying to do in the sort of commercial office building space, noting that this session is about energy efficiency for affordable homes, but also for affordable workplaces. So improved energy performance, as everybody knows, reduces emissions, puts downward pressure on energy bills, and ensures we don't overbuild energy infrastructure, all of which are vital for delivering a modern, affordable and reliable grid. In our buildings, in these sort of buildings, that means that our services and our structures should be as efficient as possible to keep bills low and people comfortable. The landmark Key Quarter Tower is in Sydney's Central Business District, on the site of Sydney's first ever skyscraper. This ageing building, it's not old because it's not in Europe or other places where they have actual old buildings, but in the Australian context it's old, had inefficient mechanical services and leaking facades. And as part of the project's net zero aim, it was earmarked for adaptive reuse. After an extensive retrofit and expansion, Danish architects 3XN created collaborative modern workspaces from the original 1970s building. Its refurbishment was awarded World Building of the Year at the 2022 World Architecture Festival. From an energy perspective, the refurbishment introduced technology and design to reduce energy demand, and to reduce Scope 2 emissions. The building uses 100% renewable electricity procured from solar farms. Australia's Clean Energy Finance Corporation worked with leading investors to deliver sustainability achievements. This investment recognised the demonstration potential of this project and how building owners can get greater performance out of existing structures. Our Green Building Council and our Property Council only this week took our Assistant Minister for Climate Change and Energy on a tour of this building as part of helping our government, politicians and others understand how big the challenge is, but also how important the opportunity is about doing major refurbishments of existing buildings. So 2/3 of the original building core was retained, saving more than 12,000 tonnes of embodied carbon, which is the equivalent of more than 2 years of operational emissions from building services. The repurposed core also saved an estimated 12 months of construction time compared with building from the ground up. And the building this year achieved a 5-star NABERS energy rating, where 6 is market leading. So NABERS, for people who don't know, is the National Australian Built Environment Rating System, which underpins our commercial building disclosure program, which since 2010 has driven a 41% reduction in base building energy use per square metre for large office buildings, helping building owners understand and reduce their energy use. At the moment, we have NABERS rating tools for a whole range of different building types in Australia, but we only mandate its use for commercial office buildings of a particular kind. Building on the success of that program, the government is consulting on expanding that regulation to cover other building types. It's a good one, you can look it up, it's on the internet. In the interest of time, I'm going to call it there. Thanks, Jonathan.
Great. Thank you very much, Claire. And well, this harks back to Julie's comments about reinventing the boxes we already have. This is quite the reinvented mega box. Thanks very much for introducing that. Now let's move back west a bit to Africa. And Rashid, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, thank you, Jonathan, for giving us this chance to tell the energy efficiency story of Africa. And also, I would like to thank the European Union and EIA for this amazing gathering that we are enjoying during these 2 days. And of course, I need to start why is energy efficiency is important for Africa, because we need to have that right context. Having 50% of population without access to electricity, and I think, and also 1 billion without access to clean cooking, energy efficiency for Africa is a critical more than any other regions. And considering that, building itself, it is a very critical component on this issue, especially that most of considerable amount of energy now used in this home, it is pollutants, mainly for cooking, and also access to the electricity. So, and when you look at the buildings, we can see from the statistic, the floor for housing in Africa is going to double by 2040. Now we are talking about 45 billion square meters, and this is doubling by 2040. That means we are talking about 50% of the building by 20 is not built yet. And actually, it is very important, since it is not built, it started in the right way, so that we are not duplicating the mistake of others. And I think this could be a challenge, but it is very good opportunity. And of course, this increase because of demographic growth, because of urbanization, because of immigration from rural area to the city. So this is very important actually. And this also energy efficiency by transforming buildings to the more efficient building. This will, I think, we target several issues: energy security, energy affordability, sustainability, and also environmental impact. And having said that, in 2023, we just do some saving assessment together with United for HSA of UNEP, and we try to see what's the saving that Africa can save by just adopting minimum performance standard for lighting and appliance. We already target only 6 appliances: refrigerator, air conditioning, TV, and motor and transformer. We saw that by adopting minimum energy performance standards, Africa can avoid investment of 80 power plant of 500 megawatt by 2040. And I think this is a huge issue of investment. And of course, you can add avoiding CO2 emission and others aspect, and also affordability and others. So having said that, also we are just conclude the decarbonization path and energy transition for Madagascar, country like Madagascar. It is island, is a small island. By adopting more energy performance standard in buildings, and also electrical appliance, and also transforming clean cooking to electrical cooking, they are able to reduce the energy consumption in 2040 by 26.4%. And actually, this is just a small country. And if you compare with the whole continent, you can imagine how this building is critical for us. And considering that, we try really to do a regional approach from Africa. We already now, we adopted, the head of state of Africa, we adopted the Africa Energy Efficiency Strategy, which is actually identify exactly what we need to go. So we are targeting to improve our energy productivity by 50% by 2050 and 70% by 2063. And of course, building is one of this one. But if you look at the reality today, only 15% out of 55 African countries, they have a building code. And I think this is a challenge. Africa, with the support of some partners now, we are supporting 10 countries to develop their national energy strategy and also the building code. But of course, we're only supporting 10 countries out of 55 countries. This actually it is a challenge. But we believe that energy efficiency have ability for duplication. So it is not something rocket science. So we are trying to elevate the supporting of 10 countries to duplicate this experience and quote to the other countries, especially there are some similarity in climate zone. And this is the reason we feel that the regional approach is the best for Africa, because we need to move fast and we need to move all together. And one more thing I need to also to highlight. And of course, if we need to move together, we need to talk to each other and we need to learn from each other. And this is the reason our head of state also approved for us to establish Africa Energy Efficiency Alliance. And this, it will be like a platform that everyone come together in the same table, member states, institution, African institution, regional or national, related to the energy efficiency, private sector, partner, donor, investor, to sit together and to learn from each other, to share the idea, to share the experience, and try to duplicate what is working in country A to country B and to country C. And I think this is very important, and I think the inaugural, this alliance, it will be in December in Tunisia, and also I invite everyone here to join us in very beautiful country, Tunisia. And also we think that it is a good models can duplicate in other regions. Because at the end, I hear we're facing the same challenge. And I think it is good to learn from each other. Before I conclude, I think I need to highlight, like, from my experience, 5 areas. The first, which I feel that it is very important. First one, the regional approach, it is important. We are not working in isolation, and there are always room to learn from each other. And I think from Africa, we believe that regional approach is important, and we are advancing in that area. And I think I invite everyone to look at this approach. And the other things also, energy efficiency in many cases is not easy. It seems easy, but especially when it comes to the building, because the authority who approve what in the national level, how they approve it, and they have the same understanding everywhere is a challenge. And we see from our experience, when countries they have a dedicated institution for energy efficiency, they can go fast. And we can see it in several African countries like Ghana, where they have Senegal, they have a dedicated institution. I think they can go fast, and at least they can have a clear target and they know how to implement that target. The other area, Of course, we are trying to implement this double energy efficiency by 2030, and this it is very ambitious, but we need to break down this to the sectors. What we need from buildings, and what we need from transport, and what we need from the other sector, and then identify which institution in the national level can do it and give to them the right mandate and the right and empower them to do that. And also the enforcement. As I mentioned, only 15 countries from 55 countries, they have building code in Africa. And in some cases, they don't have the tools for enforce this code. And I think enforcement, it is very important. Last but not least, the awareness. We need to make awareness because building, it is not a one sector. Investor involved, consumer involved, the owner involved, government involved, the utility company involved. So we need to have awareness among all these stakeholders and to send the right message to the right people on the right time. I end here. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Rashid. And I think you've laid out a clear vision that brings us back actually to the first panel of the framework and an enunciation of what that framework means for Africa. Delighted to hear about the regional alliance that you're establishing, and I'm sure many of us look forward to connecting with and working with you on that. We could go into great depth with each of you four. We've run into the coffee break, I'm afraid, and that is not great news for everybody. So, I would like to suggest that we break here, and but first a round of applause for our panel. Okay. Okay. And thanks for joining us. So in the second part, we'll go to digital solutions. The head of Europe for the World Green Building Council, Laura Payares, will be moderating that session, and then I'll return to you for the summary session.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Laura Payares, and I'm the head of Europe at World Green Building Council. I would like to welcome you to this session. And the name is Digital Solutions, Proving Applications and Emerging Ideas. We are really glad to have you here and very excited on what should be a very lively and forward-thinking conversation. I also know it's Friday afternoon, we are tired, but I promise you, it's going to be a very dynamic session. So as we all know, the world is dealing with big environmental, social, and tech-related challenges. And digital solutions have become more than just helpful. They are totally essential. From how we manage energy to how we design and live in our buildings and cities, digital tools are opening up new possibilities across the board. Today's session features a mix of experts, hands-on professionals, and big picture thinkers who are all making a real difference, both with what is already working and what just is around the corner. You'll hear a range of perspectives from different places and backgrounds, all showing how digital innovation can tackle complex problems in smart and creative ways. But this session isn't just showing off the latest technology. It's about rethinking systems, working together, and imagining a more connected and sustainable future. So I would encourage you to stay curious, think critically, and really dive in. So let's start. I would like to introduce you first our keynote speaker. He is Greg Jackson. I don't know if you had the possibility to hear him yesterday, but today he will be again and present his solution. He's the founder and CEO of Octopus Energy Group, the United Kingdom's largest energy supplier. So please let me welcome Greg.
Thank you. Okay, we've stayed till Friday afternoon, so I think we've earned ourselves the opportunity to think a little bit differently for just one moment. I want to take you back to the year 1894. The streets of London were thick with horse manure. The only the growing mode of transport was horses, and they left their rubbish in the streets that stank, were full of flies, and you had to wear Wellington boots to move around. It wasn't just London. New York, Paris, all the great cities of the world had the same problem. It was forecast that within 50 years' time, the streets would be 3 meters deep in horse manure. And nobody knew how they were going to escape this problem. And yet within 15 years, it was almost gone, and within 20, it was entirely gone. And that enormous transformation occurred because of the coming together of the technology of the automobile, the new source of energy in gasoline, and the industrial advance in mass manufacture that enabled a scale no one would have imagined. And I think it's important for us to think about transformations like that, because we live in a world in which increasingly we have access to technologies we never had before. Solar electricity is 98% cheaper than it was 20 years ago. Batteries are 90% cheaper than they were 10 years ago. Increasingly, improvements in heat pumps, the digitalization of grids, are transforming energy in ways that are just as incredible as those transformations in transport. It's just because we're living through it, we don't notice the possibilities. And if we limit our thinking to small tweaks and carrying on doing the kind of thing we did before, we miss the biggest opportunity to make a massive difference. Look, switching from horses to cars, at least until we discovered climate change, was not a compromise. It was an upgrade. Cars were better in every way. They were cleaner, quicker, more efficient, more democratizable. They didn't need stables. They didn't need vets. I guess the only thing is that they didn't reproduce automatically. But in every other way, cars were an upgrade. And I think we need to be looking at energy efficiency and the technologies we have available in the same way. And the example I wanted to share for this discussion was what we can do with home heating. First of all, everyone here should know that electrification of heat is the single greatest vector for heating efficiency. Studies in the UK where government programs spend £50,000, 60,000 euros to provide the top level of insulation for homes to enable them to stay warm in all weather, are incredibly disruptive, incredibly expensive. And instead, we've been experimenting with putting a heat pump into the same home and not upgrading the fabric. And the results are incredible. For a cost as little as £5,000, that's 10 times less, we can achieve double the cost reduction and 8 times greater carbon reduction. That is, insulation was giving a 10% cost saving and a 10% carbon saving. And the heat pump gives a 20% cost saving and an 80% carbon saving. Now, to do this, we have to use heat pumps intelligently. That is, to run them at the times the grid is cheapest. The incredible thing is that even a badly insulated home can hold heat for hours. And that enables the heat pump to preheat the home at the times of cheap electricity before we hit the peak expensive times. And then the home holds the heat and uses virtually no electricity over the expensive period. Now, once you've got this insight that using electricity intelligently in a digital, smart way enables heat pumps to be not more expensive than gas, but cheaper, it also opens up possibilities for things we would never have imagined. And I want to talk about what we call the zero bills home. Looking at the data, billions of data points from homes that were running with heat pumps and some with solar panels, some with batteries, we were able to model many, many different styles of home. And we can now work with housing developers. We work with 8 of the biggest housing developers in the UK. but we also work with housing developers in England, Wales, Scotland, New Zealand, Germany, just about to start France, Spain, Italy, Japan, and in Texas on these programs. And if the housing developer shares with us the blueprint for a home, we're able to model how much solar paneling, what size heat pump and what size battery, and by the way, what smart hot water heater are needed. And then at the point in construction, they can build those pieces of equipment in, and then we underwrite there will be no energy bills for 10 years. Now, the reason I talk about this as an upgrade is, first of all, homeowners are freed from the worries about maybe the third biggest outgoing, and one where changes in energy bills are one of the greatest causes of stress. In many countries, I mean, for example, in the UK, cost of living is the single biggest issue for citizens, and they rate energy bills as the single biggest issue within that, more than they worry about immigration, crime, housing, and health. That's how important energy bills are, and you can eliminate them. The second thing is it's great for house builders. They now make houses that are more attractive. On developments where we've had some zero bills homes and some normal homes, the zero bills homes sell up to 5 times faster, and they attract a premium that's high enough to pay for the equipment up front. Because people want these houses. And it's great for policymakers, because it enables us to hit our energy efficiency targets, our carbon reduction targets, in a way that isn't forcing a compromise on citizens, but is improving their experience. It works for social housing, it works for low-income housing, and it works for high-income housing, because it's just the same physics for everybody. So I wanted to share that example because I think that, I should say, it also works for energy companies. We actually make more money optimizing the electricity for those houses than we would do if we were just selling them the electricity to run their heating and other uses in the home. Now, by the way, it's technically complicated. You know, collectively, we process 300,000 items of data every second. That's 30 times more than Visa. But the computing cost of that is negligible. And so what we're really doing is we're trading very high infrastructure costs, very high operating costs that you normally have in the energy system, for very low digital costs and eliminating many of the others. By the way, for those who think this sounds too good to be true, I mean, the general idea is that the house generates more electricity from its solar than it can use, and we sell the surplus back to the grid. We then buy from the grid at the times when the grid is cheapest and store it in the battery. All the time, we're choosing whether to use the grid, the solar, or the battery for the heat pump, and the same for the hot water. And then in the times of year when you need a lot of heating, we'll draw more from the grid, but pay that back over the rest of the year. So the optimization's challenging, but having run billions, hundreds of billions of data points, it just works. So today we have about 10,000 houses in the UK that have been through the assessment program, and about 5,000 of them have now been approved, and the program's only been going about 18 months. There is no reason why 50% of all new homes in northern climates like Britain, it's quite hard to remember on a day like today that heating's important, but in northern climates, about 50% of homes could end up being zero bills if we follow this path. So that was my contribution to today. But if you want to just think about how transformative it can be, let's just think back to those streets of Horsemanure, because that's, if we could see carbon, that's the world we're living in today, and it's the world we can escape from in a way that's good for everyone, not a compromise. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Greg. And I really like 2 sentences that you said, like using electricity in a smart way and making money optimizing energy. I think that it's something we'll take back home. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So, can you hear me? Yeah. What I would like to do now is present one by one the panelists, and each of them, they will present their solution. Right? So what I would like is to start now with our first speaker. He is Mr. Nicolas Ramirez, and he is the Executive Director of Green Building Council in Costa Rica. And he will be guiding us through the world of digital building passports. So, Nicolas.
Thank you, Laura. Good afternoon to everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I think we have to congratulate the Friday afternoon gladiators who are still here. Congratulations to all of you. I want to give a little bit of context first before I think there's a slide coming up soon. Give you some context just so you know where we're coming from here. Costa Rica's generation of energy is 97% clean on average over the last 10 years. So our path to decarbonization and the motivation behind our energy efficiency goals differ from many other countries. Still very important, but a different approach. There is also a general yes we can or si se puede attitude in our country in regards to certain national aspirations, and this is rooted in past achievements, some of them very old, some of them newer, such as the abolishment of the army in 1948 and redirecting those funds towards public education, and then the recovering of our forest coverage, which was at 21% in 1987 and was brought up to 57% in 2017. These may not be that related to energy efficiency, but these are certain big national endeavors that have been taken on and have represented collaboration between government, private sector, civil society, and so on, and have given this general attitude of, on one side, ambition on behalf of the government, and also a general sense of viability. Yeah, we can do that in terms of collaboration from private sector leaders. So these are important things that help to kind of set the stage. This context is important because today, at this time, the government is giving us the opportunity to develop impactful regulation with very strong collaboration with private sector leaders. So that's a good situation. This is a good place to be. But in this case in particular, we don't have the adequate data, to not say no data, regarding our national building sector. So this is needed, obviously, to properly advise and guide this process and ensure well-informed policy making and implementation of planning processes. Okay, so this is the dilemma where we are right now. We need to gather quality, traceable data on our national building stock as quickly as possible. We need to leverage the knowledge and experience of other countries so that we can leapfrog this process in Costa Rica. And in this process, there is no time for, we have our own national solution or one-upmanship or whatever you want to call it, which sometimes does tend to happen. So that's a situation where we are. Leapfrogging to accelerate the replication and escalation of impactful transformation is vital if we are to meet our country's needs and commitments in my lifetime and hopefully not pass them on to my daughters, for example. So this is something we're really working on and focusing for a while now with different stakeholders. Now, bringing you directly to the solution we're talking about here, the CAPSA Buildings Passport tool enables us to gather strategic, verifiable information on our buildings in a short period of time. CAPSA was developed with the valuable support from UNEP's Global Alliance for Buildings and Construction, a network of which we've been a part of since 2023, and through which we came to know the tool. Its particular interface with the user and the intuitive guidance through the building registry process managed to hit a very difficult to find, a very challenging sweet spot of simplicity of use to enable widespread implementation and quality control to ensure trustworthy data collection. So that's what we found in this tool that we haven't found in other tools. In regards to specific implementation, there are some examples up there. I'm just going to mention 3 of what this looks like in reality, where we see some actual traction. I'm going to mention 3 projects. The first is the PIB Cool project. I think it's been mentioned in a few sessions before us. This is a collaboration between GIZ and AFD, and it's being implemented in 11 countries. Costa Rica is one of them. And there we will use the CAPSA to contribute to a national baseline of energy consumption, water consumption, and embodied carbon, which we do not have. Many other countries do. We also will use it to contribute to a public sector strategy for sustainable construction, which is being developed in coordination with the PIB Cool project. And finally, we'll also use it to update Costa Rica's energy efficiency code, whose last version was 1994. So you can imagine there's a lot to update there. So the idea is to get valuable information from this tool and use it in these different processes. Secondly, We have a project that's just starting right now called Eliminating Hazardous Substances in the Construction Materials Value Chain in Costa Rica. That's the abbreviated title. This is funded by GEF and implemented by UNIDO, our Ministry of Environment and Energy, and the GBCCR. And in this project, we want to use CAPSA to contribute to creating a national building stock inventory, once again, which we do not have. And also, once we have that inventory, being able to detail the materials that are in those buildings, getting a better idea of what composition there is, what's more common, what's less common, so on and so forth. And finally, we're also using this tool to, in the process of updating NDCs. As many of you know, we're in NDC 3.0 preparation right now. And in Costa Rica, some may say diligently, others would say frantically, we are working on this update to get it in time, ready in time for a COP. So we'll be using CAPSA there to, on one hand, work on the inventory of embodied carbon in our building stock, which, once again, I keep repeating this, we do not have, we have none of this. The idea is to use this for this valuable data. And secondly, once we're moving forward, the idea is to continue to use the tool so that we can quantify the impact of different decarbonization measures, including energy efficiency. I think that gives you a bit of an idea. We'll take questions later.
Thank you, Nicolas. We will be coming back later to the data topic, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so when we think about the built environment, we also immediately think about the existing building stock, right? And how can we retrofit? So here we have our next speaker. He will be talking about this challenge. He is Mr. Uwe Wigalke, and he comes from the German Energy Agency, and he will be presenting the Energy Sprung movement in Europe.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, I'll start with a question. Can you think of anything less digital than the retrofit sector? I can't really, because so far this has been such manual work on a construction site many times without any planning at all. So how can we speak about retrofit and at the same time about digitalization? Well, we can. First of all, I think the little amount of digitalization is also a reason why retrofit is so complicated, so slow, often low quality, and many times it's not affordable at the same time for owners, for tenants. But this can be different using digital technologies, and I'd like to show on my slide how this can look like. So you can see on the left a digital scan of a building, a 3D scan. This is a point cloud that you can use to create a file, an automated planning to be used in a factory to produce those facade elements that you can see in the factory. Those facade elements can be mounted to the building in a matter of minutes so that the building is insulated. You can do the same for roofs, and you can do the same for energy modules, heating systems, heat pumps. You can integrate ventilation systems in those panels, or even heating systems into those panels. And this is a way to have a very quick retrofit. Is that a vision? No, this is reality. In Germany and other countries, this is already a market of 3 billion euros. In Germany alone, speaking for my country, we're on a way to make this technology a key technology for the transition of the building sector. And you know, Germany, we're always happy to export that to other countries. So what do countries need to do to get there? That is a lot of innovation, a lot of development. So you need, we've heard that from Greg before, you need to define and design that as a product, just like the cars we've heard from London. So you need to design scalable retrofit solutions to make retrofit attractive. What does that include? That includes that it needs to be much quicker than retrofits before. We've seen already 10 years ago, the first buildings in the Netherlands retrofitted small houses on 1 day. Usually it takes maybe 2 weeks for a building like that, maybe 2 months, but it's much quicker than what we see right now, a matter of years, a year and a half. So it needs to be quick, it needs to be affordable for tenants and for owners. It needs to be much faster, easier to design and easier to get. And that's the idea of a product, much more than a project. And you can only get there through innovation and through digitalization. So why should companies do that? they should do that to make a business. We've attracted already 500 companies in Germany alone, more than 150 housing associations who do not only pilots, but who are rolling that out and getting into scale, so that there are already 3,000 flats being retrofitted or already done, another 15,000 on their way. So this is scaling up, and yeah, this is a way to use digitalization to create scalable retrofit solutions. So what do we do as German Energy Agency in that case? I think we do many things a company would do in that field. That means communication, but also key account management. We do acquisition of new projects. We do a little bit of policy advising, but we also do strategic development with companies into new fields like non-residential buildings or the single-family house sectors. And we do that on behalf of the German government. So how can other countries, how could you with your country get there? Especially if you look to innovation, innovation is always costly. In the beginning, these things have cost double the costs of what a regular retrofit would cost. But if you remember 20 years ago, phones have cost 5,000 euros, were that big, and you had to take them to your car. That's where we were 20 years ago, and now they're so small. So you needed trust in innovation and that things develop and get cheaper and more cost efficient. But somebody has to do something about that. So that's maybe the call for action for today. There's a huge gap always between innovations and scale, and somebody has to bridge that gap, and that's usually what governments can do. So somebody has to pay, for example, for the first 10 or 20 or 50,000 retrofits to bridge that price gap, the same as for other technologies. And I think that's one thing governments can do. The other thing is, I think you need an actor in between to bring all the stakeholders, all the policymakers, the companies, the housing associations together to design those pilots, to get from pilots to scale in the next phase. And so whoever is interested of you in those kind of projects, just let me know. I think it's a great idea to move the sector forward. We've done that in the Netherlands, in Great Britain, also in France and in Italy. A lot of pilots and projects are going on, and yeah, it would be great to see this in more countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Uwe. I really like the design, retrofit scalable solutions, and also call for governments to fill this gap. Thank you. Our third speaker is Ms. Graziella Roccella. She's the Chief Research and Product Design Officer at Planet Smart Cities, and she will be walking us through the answers this initiative is giving to end users in Brazil and India.
Thank you. So thank you for the invitation, for having us here. And so today I would like to present what are the impacts of these initiatives that we are putting into the ground in Brazil. And particularly, it's a project called D2FX, so Digital Districts for Flexible Energy. This is a QR code that you can, if you want, you can scan. You can go to a specific landing page that we have prepared. And so this project is actually a grant project, a research grant project by UNEP, so the environmental project of the United Nations. It has been funded under the initiative called 3DEN. So that was supported originally by MASE, so the Ministry of Environment and Energy in Italy. First phase was awarded 2 years ago, and so together with our project, other projects in India and also one in Morocco were awarded. And so the implementation of this project was about installation of solar panels, but this is not, of course, a digital solution. So solar panels, together with the smart metering and also batteries, were implemented, and a new feature on our platform was deployed to let the people play with energy. Because one of the thing I think is very important to remember is that energy, like money, I think, it's a flow. And so we all have to play, because it's something that is allowing the life of the people, and all what we do should be done for the final users, for the residents. So in the end, what we implemented is this feature available on our Planet app, it's called like that. And people were asked to answer to a survey, to declare which are the appliances in their houses. Usually they are ovens, ventilation systems, air conditioned, maybe washing machines, not that much dishwashers because we are operating in emerging countries, so that's not, that is more like luxury stuff. But after they declare all of their appliances, what we did for make the dispatchable loans flexible, we asked them if they wanted to play with us. So if they were available to shift their loads, meaning, let's say in the normal life of a person, they go, one goes to work and then they come back. When they come back, they need the air to be, the house to be maybe cool. Maybe they want to use the oven. They want to switch the air conditioner on, or having the washing machine, etc., etc. So what happens? That everybody wants to do the laundry maybe at the same hour. So what happens when Laura wants to do the laundry at 4, Graziella wants to do the laundry at 4, and Diego, etc., and Uwe wants to do everybody the laundry at the same time? That we are demanding energy to the distributor, and we are creating peaks, of course. Mm-hmm. In emerging countries, like in Brazil, the network is not stable yet, due to the bigness of the country, due to heavy rains, due to many, many reasons. There will be panelists from Brazil in the next session, so they will explain also. So what we're doing is just asking Laura, Graziella, and everybody else to say, are you available to contribute to this course? And if the answer is yes, then automatically, thanks to an algorithm that is calculating the demand and the response, maybe Laura is doing the laundry at 4:05, Graziella is doing it at 4:10, and everybody else 5-10 minutes, 1 hour late. So this is peak shifting and peak shaving, and this is really bringing the flexibility to the network.
Thank you, and I really thank you, Graziella. Also, thanks for reminding us how important it is to engage with people, to this people centricity. It's fantastic. But another topic I've been hearing before for a while, and it's very also linked to the innovation, is data. I think in my day-to-day work, I hear data all the time. So if we don't have data of the buildings, we cannot measure. If we cannot measure, we cannot act accordingly. So to talk about this topic, we have our last speaker. He is Mr. Zigao Wang. He's from the Energy Foundation China, and he will be explaining us the importance of the city-level online building data collection system.
Thank you. Thank you, colleagues, for staying here. It's kind of late. You are true digital livers. So I was supposed to be here to share some of my observations on the digital data collection on buildings, online data systems, as well as building energy cap or building grading labeling systems. So before that, I would first give you a little bit of background on how China controls building energy consumption. Basically, for the new building system, China has established a pretty robust standard system. We have a baseline standard, basically requiring every new buildings it's meant to reach a certain level of energy efficiency. And that has been implemented quite well. But for once a building is built, is there, how its performance look like? It's sometimes we don't have a clear idea. And China is entering more, existing building retrofit stage. So some genius in our government
back to more than 10 years ago. I think it was late 2010, something like that. And they said, let's build a data supervisory, data monitoring system so we can extract data from the buildings and see how it performs. But for the actual the building energy performance, they also would like to know the details, not only, because even at that time, every building have meters of gas, have meters of water, have meters of electricity. But, if you want to understand how your heat pump performs, how your water pump performs, how your building envelope performs, you have to have a lot of more details. Then you have to install a lot more sensors and transmitters, so to collect and transmit and maintain the data. So then the central government invested quite a lot of money, I think in the billions RMB. And basically, every province get a pilot. And later on, it turned out to be more complicated than we expect. And until now, only in a few cities, I think they are continue using that system and build upon those systems to develop more advanced energy control schemes. One example is Shanghai, the city of Shanghai. They built upon this data acquisition system, and then currently they integrated the Shanghai's major green buildings, ultra-low energy buildings, the so-called eco district data, etc. So basically, a lot of sensors and collectors, so they get data hourly, and also they can get data daily, quarterly, and monthly. So based upon that data, they can do a lot of things now. For example, they can understand how their city's renewable energy has been deployed, how are they geographically look like, and how their building energy performance looks like, especially for specific items like a building envelope or, for example, or water pumps, etc. Basically, built upon that data, they actually were able to quickly identify who are the buildings, which buildings are the most needed for energy retrofit, and which part of the buildings are the most needed for energy retrofit, etc. So, and even they have even more advanced solution. For example, based on that data, one of the districts in Shanghai has developed a building load-based virtual power plant. Basically help the grid to do the peaking, shaving, and power regulation. So Shanghai is a quite successful example. On the other hand, another city, Beijing, to my knowledge, they also built upon the data acquisition system, but not as advanced as Shanghai. But through more than 10 years of data accumulation, also plus they do a lot of smaller scale, sampling, they build a database. And then based on that database, they can tell their major buildings, like public and commercial buildings, what the energy performance do they look like. And then they develop a standard of building energy consumption. And basically, they gave a cap, and they gave a recommended building consumption level. Then, based on those value parameters, they set up like 5 levels of building performance for its public and commercial buildings, from A to E. And they have a similar function in terms of the building energy retrofit, like the Shanghai system. So, so far, I think these are examples that build upon the data acquisition system. Other cities, I think they are still working hard. Looking forward, China is a very big country. You know, the metropolitan, like big city like Beijing and Shanghai, have shown very good exemplary, role. So other cities are following, even looking even further. China is building this so-called new type of power system, basically with 80% of non-fossil fuel in its grid. That means a lot of renewable energy, also means a lot of variable, oscillation for the grid. Then we have to rely on the building load flexibility to basically accommodate, to absorb first of all, absorb the renewable energy, and secondly, to regulate a great power system. So, and that means in the future, each building may have to build in flexibility, including such energy storage, and a good understanding of the flexibility for its major, energy users, like your refrigerator or your air conditioner, your heat pumps, etc. If we were going to ask those, energy users to play the role of flexibility, then data, data supervision, data monitoring, data collection is essential. Yeah.
Thank you. I really like the building flexibility for the energy users through the data. Thank you. Now I will start with more targeted questions for you. First, I'm going to start with challenges, and then we're going to go to the most positive side, okay? Nicolas, what are the biggest challenges that you faced implementing digital building passports, especially in terms of data collection and also sharing?
Okay, thank you. I think I'll mention two major ones. From the options we had available, we've been finding, we found when we were looking for solutions, I think the most common one was that we either had two kinds of tools. One that would give you a lot of data with very low quality, not very trustworthy, but many buildings, which was an interesting trade-off. And then the other one was very high-quality data, very specific information, everything you want to know about that building, but for very few buildings, okay? So we were stuck between those two, and we really weren't satisfied with either one. We didn't find that either one of those could give us, put us in a position to give proper advice and guidance to policymakers or to developers or so on and so forth. So that is, I think, a common hurdle, and that's one of the reasons we've chosen this tool. We find that has a good, like as I mentioned, a sweet spot there. And I think the other one maybe is there's a temptation. I confess I went through this temptation. We've seen it on behalf of policymakers and also on the private sector, where people say, that already exists, you don't have to invent something, let's just copy paste, it works fine in Copenhagen, and you want to just get the quick cash in, let's say, on something that already exists without doing your, I don't know if I can translate this properly, your tropicalization homework in order to, you want to take that idea, you want to be able to share things that are working in other places, but adapt them to have regional relevance, right? So fighting off that temptation to the policymakers, this is an election year, we have to get this code out. Let's just wait a little bit more, get a little bit more information. We don't have to do our own thing and start from scratch, but how can we adapt this that we think works and tweak it to our reality, let's say. I think those are the two hurdles, kind of giving people some patience when they want to run, even when you want to run too, and on the other one in terms of, high quality, little data, or low data, low quality, high data. So those are the two hurdles I think that are constant.
Fantastic. That you were almost introducing my next questions for Mr. Wang about the challenges that he's facing in gathering accurate data at building scale and how you address them.
Well, it's definitely very challenging. I think, first of all, it's not like, it's if you wanted to get accurate data, first of all, you need to invest on a lot of data infrastructure, right? You have to install the sensors, the data transmitters, and etc. And on the other hand, it's not a one-off investment. You know, if it's not as simple as you put the infrastructure there and you get data automatically. That's not simple. That's simple. Then you need to maintain the system, all right? And you need to constantly verify the data, validate the data, analyze the data, do the corrections, and make sure the system operates in a good condition, right? I think that's a lesson for our, pilots in Chinese cities. Why many of the systems are actually not generating data of good quality. Because the government indeed invests on the infrastructure, but later on you need a lot of labor, a lot of work to maintain it and to make the system run smoothly. So I think that's the first lesson learned. Secondly, I think as a first step, let's not to be too ambitious, right? We're trying to collect. Trying to understand each and every of the equipment in the buildings. That's very ambitious. Why not, let's first, okay, you have the various meters. You have the gas meters, electricity meters, water meters, heat meters. Why not, let's first, these are data islands sitting in different departments. Why can we first gather all this data and put it into one inventory? And do the cross-check and see the overall performance. I think that's the first step. Then gradually the building owners can have, once the building energy efficiency, building retrofit, the investment on data acquisition and data and energy efficiency monitoring pays back. They can themselves install a more advanced system to monitor the building performance, I think. Yeah, definitely lots of challenges. Need to break a lot of barriers. Even in some cases, we need to maybe do more regulations, do more coordination among different departments, break the barriers, break the bonds, I think, yeah.
Thank you. Now I would like to go through digital technology as enabler. And for that, I have a question for you, Uwe. In the Energy Sprung movement, you focus on retrofitting existing buildings to net zero energy standards. How does digital technology enable this approach apart from planning and production?
Yeah, right. So planning to production actually is step number 2 in the whole phase. I've shown the 3D model right through to production. But step 1 would be getting data from the buildings, from an energy passport, for example, or just through the address. We've got great companies who give you a 3D model if you just type the address. I think we could use AI, for example, to recognize if a roof is old or not. I think we could use Street View to see if there's an insulation or not. So we could use digital technologies to have a very quick overview of what the building is about, enrich it with more data, like you said, but then not stopping there. I think that's really important. That means you need a configurator to design your own solution for your house, maybe on the internet. You may need information about subsidy schemes, etc., online, just with a click. And then you need to be linked to the companies who would do the job. I think that's step number 1, from the address all the way through to a company who can do that job. Step 2 is manufacturing, production. And then afterwards, step 3, I would say, is the digital construction side, maybe with VR, virtual reality. And step 4 is the monitoring, like seeing if what you've built really works in the end. So 4 steps, and you can use digitalization all the way through.
Yeah, thank you. Following those lines, again, Mr. Wang, how do you ensure that the performance labeling that you were discussing enables and drive in the building operations and design?
Okay, I think, first of all, the labeling as a policy, you have to have tools, in order to bite, right? You have to be able to bite. So I think to bite, maybe it's a more serious term, but first of all, you have to be helpful. Basically, by those grading or labeling process, the building owners start to realizing, first of all, their building performance, if they get a very low, very high grade, for example, level E in Beijing, then they understand that their buildings are underperforming. So there's some problem. So that process can help them quickly identify that their building needs some improvement. Secondly, if their buildings get a grade E, then the government will let them know or announce that their building need to be improved. And they put all the buildings' name need to be improved on the government website. It's open to everyone. So, and for the good performers, the government also lists them on the website. So there's a gain phase or lose phase game. So especially many of the big public buildings, they are the owner are SOEs, state-owned enterprises. So they care a lot about gaining phases or losing phases, right? That's one part. And if worst comes to the worst, then a building with consecutive 2 years of level E will require to go to do retrofit. If you don't do that, then you will get a fine. You will get something like a ticket, a fine of about 30,000 RMB to 100,000 RMB. Then you lose money. Okay, so there are some there are some penalty as well as you get benefited from that. So and that has become a regulation. The Beijing building labeling system was based on this so-called Beijing Building Green Development Regulation that was released in last year, I think April last year, and July last year, Beijing rolled out its labeling, policy for the whole city. Yeah.
Thank you. A traffic light, very visual, so red, orange, green somehow. And also citizens to engage and they playing a game like you were mentioning, Graziella. And I want to bring this conversation to the people centricity that you were discussing before, the citizens' engagement. How do you engage residents with the digital tools and sustainability goals with your smart cities?
Yeah, there is no smart city without any smart citizenship. So
exactly.
That's everything. It's on the people. The affordability is on the people. The use of energy is on the people. So first of all, in our company, it's not just architects and engineers. There's a lot of people dealing with people. So sociologists, anthropologists, psychologists, all of those people and disciplines, they are connected into our global community development team. So what they do is that they stay in place. They meet the people. They talk to the people. We have developed also this format. It's called Citizens Lab. So it's an event that is going on at regularly, monthly, or depending on how much we need of those events. And we ask the people to come, the residents, to ask questions. To even we try to target problems that might happen, like in Europe, for instance, we do the same. Also, we did the same with other grant projects. Before developing this in Brazil, we had this interconnect project that was funded under the Horizon 2020 program. And there we asked the people to come and learn how to download the app, how to interact with the digital platform, etc. So in Europe, one of the problems is the aging population. Yep. That actually instead in Brazil and in India is totally inexisting. I mean, at least in our priority list of the company. So what we do is that we gather the people. We find also places, physical places, where the people can stay together, speak to each other, and we call those places innovation hubs. basically they are rooms or buildings, 1,000 square meter buildings in which we let the people stay together. We help them shape their own programs, let's say even sports program, yoga sessions or knitting sessions for the elderly. And then during these sessions or in dedicated digital sessions, we have an expert from our team explaining them how to use the technologies, how to save the money, because in the end, and I would like to come back to the Brazilian project, all what we do is to of course, consume less, to make the consumptions also more efficient. So in Brazil, in the Fortaleza region, it's tropical region. Also, we talk about the tropicalization, and then in English we say customization. So we brought all of the European stuff, all what was already developed in the Italian case study, and we tropicalize, so meaning we try to understand in the Brazilian environment what is going to work, what is not going to work. Then what we say after all of these 6 months experimentations is that these solar panels, storage system, smart metering, and the app, they have brought to lowering the consumptions. And so with those installations, we can say that the payback period is around 3.6 years. So the whole package of innovative solutions, after just less than 4 years, is paid back. And of course, so the people are lowering their bills, and the people are also selling to the grid the energy that is a surplus. And so this is basically a very good impact on the life of people. And we also have made some communication videos, etc., that are on our LinkedIn profile that you can explore if you want, saying that this is a good experimentation. So next step would be also to roll out these solutions.
Thank you. And back to you, Nicolas, again with the citizen engagement. How do digital building passports work in practice? But especially what I want to hear is what are the benefits that they bring to the building owners and occupants?
Okay. Well, in general, as I mentioned, for Costa Rica, what we're seeing there is obviously we want to have an inventory. You have an inventory, but an inventory that also rates the performance of the buildings. And the idea is that if this is done with a tool that is easy enough to manage, you don't need a PhD engineering person to do it. If that can be done in the same way, it should be updated all the time, so you have it available at any time to make decisions. So definitely an advantage in that sense is that, and that's where we want to be. In specific benefits, I think probably one of the most cross-sectional benefits for all of the users is definitely the transparency. The transparency in having that information about each building, about a portfolio of buildings, reduces risks for everybody. And when risks are reduced, obviously there's more value. So this goes for obviously investors, financial or bank lenders, developers, the occupants as well. The more information we have, which is once again verified, not just out in the air, verified information that can be updated, that's going to reduce risk, and that's good for everybody. So I think those are some of the let's say, the general benefits. There are other things as well. Obviously, if we all truly believe that, what doesn't get measured, you can't control it and you can't optimize it, same thing goes for a building. So if you have more specific information, once again, as long as getting that specific information isn't more costly than the savings, in a certain case like a retrofit, wow, it'd be great to do a specific retrofit and say, in this building, insulation is not going to save as much as, I don't know, heat pumps or some other intervention. So let's do that low-hanging fruit and get that cost benefit, in there, and you can customize that. That's a huge benefit for everybody in general terms. But like I said, it depends on, you don't want to be so complicated and go so detailed on the information that you never get to the actual solution. So it's that sweet spot is what we're looking for.
Thank you. We've been through challenges, we've been through enablers. I want to go also to lessons learned. And Uwe, my next question is for you. What lessons learned from the European Energy Sprung experience could be applied to other regions? So how can we escalate it and replicate it?
Well, I would say three things. First thing is innovation. Innovation is key. That's big learning, and we can achieve so much about it. But of course, we have got to adapt it to all our countries. The second thing I think we've learned is that this innovation doesn't come alone. Look at electromobility. The first electric vehicle was built in 1888. That was when we've had still horses in the streets. 125 years to get to where we are with electromobility now, because we left it to the market. So I think the third learning is you or governments need to do something about it to get this innovation within 10 or 20 years, because we don't have the time. So how can governments support? First of all, I think you can build innovation communities, like Graziella said, get the right people together into a room to develop things, to inspire each other. But that needs a little bit of money, and I think it needs somebody to organize it, a team around it. Secondly, you need to bridge the gap from innovation all the way through to scale. And that means not just finance a couple of pilots. That means finance the first 10,000, 20 or 50,000 homes to be retrofitted. Then you get to scale. You don't need to finance it forever, because innovation will do the rest and get the costs down.
Thank you. I have such cool panelists that they are introducing my next question. So governments, okay, policy, Graziella, the next time is for you on financing. Yeah. What role does the public policy and financial mechanisms play in designing and managing these smart communities?
Well, they are literally enabling everything, because without the right policy settings, it's hard to do anything. I mean, in Brazil, this is a wonderful program. It's called Minha Casa Minha Vida, basically My Life, My House. And it's providing the rules, the requirements for us to provide the right product, meaning the product, not just the housing unit, but also the district. And also provide requirements for the people to be eligible to get access to credit. And now I'm also recalling the role of financial mechanisms. So in this case, this project was a grant. Basically, UNEP provided us with $1 million. So with those $1 million, and also we co-financed, of course, so the total value of the project, the two effects, is $1.4 million. We were able to deploy 100 solar kits on 100 houses. So now there are 100 households, 100 families that can save money on the energy bill each month. So, of course, this is non-feasible if the cost of the implementation is on the real estate developer only. This is non-feasible if the cost will be on the residents only. So, what's the key? I guess that if we manage, if we succeed to bring the multilateral organization, meaning maybe World Bank, and since we are also dealing with the developments in India, maybe Asian Development Bank, State Bank of India, etc., and commercial banks, because it's not just on the multilateral banks, it's also on commercial banks. If they manage to bring down to zero the interest rate, so the intervention of the public is unavoidable to bring all of these solutions into practice. Then the cost of the kit will be, let's say, absorbed in the cost of the mortgage, and so the final residents, let's say, by paying the same mortgage rate every month, instead of saving the money, they pay the whole bill. But the cost of the savings will go to replace the interest rate. So in the end, everybody would be happy. So it's a win-win-win situation. So to go back to Brazil, maybe with the COP 30 in Belém, the intervention of maybe the Ministry of Energy, maybe the intervention of the Caixa Econômica Federal, the Banco Federal de Brasil, or UNEP itself, will be much needed to replicate and to scale all of these solutions that we have seen can literally bring a successful impact on the life of people.
Thank you. We have 1 minute left, and I have a challenge for you. So, when we meet at the next global conference in 5 or 10 years, which I guess you're going to invite us again because we are a super cool panel, what is the most important change in building sector driven by the digital solutions that you presented would you hope to see? And you need to tell me 2 words. 2 words. Who wants to start? Great, Nicolas.
I'm an engineer, so 2 words.
Okay.
Accessibility and scalability.
Fantastic. Okay.
I go for inclusion.
Inclusion, 1 word. Okay, good. Like it.
Load flexibility.
Thank you.
It will be part of the power system.
Okay.
Buildings will be part of the power system.
Okay. Uwe?
I would go with Nicolas, scalable solutions, really.
All right. Thank you so much for being us, and I think they deserve an applause, and we deserve an applause. And now back to Jonathan for closing. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, and thanks very much for your resilience in carrying us through this afternoon, on Friday afternoon. That was a really great session, and for me, it highlighted how a lot of thinking is already going into how digital solutions can be part of and to modernize the programs that are already in place and already working. So now, where do we go from here? We've heard a lot about solutions, about frameworks, about solutions. We've heard a variety of case studies from around the world. What do we have next to do? How do we organize for action? Of course, there are a number of efforts that have already been initiated. Last year, as we heard at the top from Rosalinda, she talked about the Chaillot Declaration and how that is one way of bringing together governments and parties across sectors. And through the Intergovernmental Council for Buildings and Construction, there is a ministerial level event. Its first ministerial level event is anticipated for COP30 at Belém. So I think it's appropriate that we turn next to Brazil, comments from Brazil, and our good friend Samira Sousa from the ministry there will join us now for her remarks. Samira. Okay.
Good afternoon. First of all, I would like to thank IEA for this very amazing conference. As I have said before, this is my first time in presence here, so for me it's an honor to also bring this final comments here. Also, I want to thank the Energy Efficiency Hub for the invitation to participate in this panel, and also bring some greetings from my colleagues in Brazil that are participating in the Energy Efficiency Buildings Task Group. Talking about this panel and all the topics regarding energy efficiency in buildings, we have the certain that the energy efficiency in buildings have a great potential to bring resilience in this context of climate change, also having avoiding the use of electrical equipment together with bringing the creation of new and consistent jobs all through the value chain of the sector, and also addressing some problems as the energy poverty, offering also better comfort for well-being for the owners. And as I mentioned also in the previous panel, Brazil is also for the first time implementing these maps for buildings. For us, it's been a very hard way that we are going through. I have to mention that we have had a lot of resistance of some stakeholders, but we definitely sure that energy efficiency in buildings will play a central role for the achievement of our NDC targets. So in this moment, I want to thank my colleague Alexandra Maciel, that's not here, but that's really a warrior dealing with this work already for almost 5 years and all his career. I'd like to thank her here publicly. And these strategies for improving energy efficiency buildings, we have seen through the whole panel that are very different and can be different between each country or region. Some countries may be focused on renovations and retrofits. Other countries like ours can be focused on new buildings, but in fact, all the efforts are valuable and certainly will count for helping achieving the goals we are pursuing as signatories of the pledges we have assumed in COP28. So talking about COP, although we don't have yet a very well-structured agenda for the topics we are going to be developed in COP30, we understand that following Brazilian presidents and G20, the discussions there will revolve around just and inclusive energy transition, people-centered transitions, and also addressing energy poverty, as I already mentioned. And energy efficiency can bring real on-ground experiences, as Brian mentioned, and for that we understand that these experiences can bring comfort and especially well-being for, especially for the most vulnerable groups. And I have heard already that we will have during COP a Buildings Day that will discuss, and I think this is a very important place where we can showcase all the experiences that were shown here and all the experiences are already being implemented in other countries. Energy efficiency policies for buildings will play a leading role. So for the successful COP30 outcomes, and it was really impressive to know about the experiences being implemented and also about the willingness and the necessities both from public and private sectors. These all innovative technologies, construction models, digitalization measures, financial schemes, public policies, all kinds of measures are important. And we hope that this momentum of finding ways to real implementation can motivate all of you to mobilize and take part in these discussions. We hope to welcome you all in Belém in November, already with concrete actions planned to advance with the progress of energy efficiency. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And if Alexandra is a warrior, you are her comrade in arms. And I think that the two of you really show that individuals really do make a difference, both in your own work and in the example that you set. So thanks very much for joining us today. Now, I think it's fitting that we close with our co-hosts here, and so representing the European Commission is Principal Advisor to the Director General for Energy and Chair of the Energy Efficiency Hub, Tudor Constantinescu. Tudor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Very pleased also to be here today, and I don't know what is more challenging than an afternoon session. I tell you, it's to close an afternoon session. But thank you for your resilience being here, and happy to share these last words with Melanie, with the IEA, and happy that the Hub and the task group, which we initiated for buildings under the Hub, has managed, together with the IEA, to bring this community of practice and of policies together. And I'm convinced that this type of work will continue. This was a fantastic event over these 2 days the IEA put together, and this should continue. And it's one of the roles of the Energy Efficiency Hub and its group, particularly the task group on buildings, to maintain this momentum and to make sure that the exchanges continue over the next months and years. And thanks also to Brazil to bring this now also on the agenda of the COP. I think all this is very important. We have heard during these days, and also when we speak about buildings, how important it is to link this also to affordability, and how important it is to actually, at the end of the day, to put the people at the center of all these programs. We heard a lot, and also in these panels over the day, how relevant it is, first of all, to have all the policies developed, or as many of the policies, relevant policies, the regulations in place, and then to concentrate on the implementation. I think this was the key word for the first part of what I had the great pleasure to listen to, the implementation. When you have all these policies, the targets in places to really focus on implementation. And then what we heard in the second part is about innovation. Technologies indeed have evolved fantastically over the years. Big benefits in terms of cost, in terms of contribution to the needs of the people, and solving the problems, the new problems of the society which we face, and also in our fight towards carbon neutrality and addressing climate change. But it's also very important when we speak about innovation, it's not just the technologies. We have to see how advanced policies and technologies at the same time. And to drive technologies, we need policies. At the same time, the development of technology sometimes drive policies. And to find the right balance, it's really key in the successful energy transition. And we need to innovate on technologies, but we also need to innovate on policies. We need smart meters, but we need also smart people. So we need all these things to work better actually together, and to build this community of practice where the Hub definitely is happy, that's why it's called an Energy Efficiency Hub, to play its role within the IEA, together with the IEA, but also with the other organizations, many of them present and supporting also the events today, not just to quote the Global ABCs, the UNEP, the UK Carbon Trust, and the World Green Building Council, and many others. And it's very important that all of them communicate, we build the synergies between them, facilitate also the access of the various countries and regions and cities to different types, different levels, and subsequently to ensure that there is a good cooperation and exchange between all of them in order to really benefit to the maximum. There is no single solution. We know in the energy transition there is no single organization to be able to solve all the problems at national or intergovernmental, whatever level, but to make things together working, to build this community of practice, and to put the people at the center of what we are trying to do in terms of affordability, in terms of quality of life, and in terms of commitment towards a better society and climate and energy effective transition will in the end pay off, and we are all committed to work towards that. So thank you very much, and congratulations to the organizers.
It doesn't work out here. Okay, to tie a bow on it, from the IEA, the head of the Energy Efficiency and Emerging Economies program, Mel Slade.
Thank you, Jonathan. And actually, I think Tudor's just said it all. So I'm not sure what there is to say, but I think what we've seen today and over the last couple of days is the need for us all to work together, as everybody said. This last panel points out that in order to have effective policy, there's this whole community that you need to engage with. So that's what the conference is about, getting policymakers, getting industry, getting civil society, getting all the disciplines together to work together. And if I just have a couple of pleas, and I come from the IEA, so I'm bound to say these sorts of things. We have recently launched our new version of our policy toolkit, so I'd recommend you go and look at them. But one of them, the things about these toolkits this time round is that they're an online version and they're elaborated by a whole set of case studies. So if you've seen something that or heard something that tells you about a country that's doing something particularly special, point us to it, please, and we'll incorporate that in our library of case studies so that we make this a really effective resource for everybody. And then as well as case studies, of course, we're always looking for good data. So if you've got good evidence of really successful policy, please share it, because we'll incorporate that in our work and our analysis. And then also, I liked Tudor's comment about smart buildings and smart people. That is clearly evident, and we have a lot of those together. So sharing all of your experiences is really important to us too. And then the last thing I would say, and I think it's been evident in this session and in the appliances session earlier, efficiency meets grids, which is going on at the moment, is we need to future-proof our policy. So anybody who's got great examples of how we introduce elements into our building codes so that we're ready for the digital requirements that we'll need if we're going to have buildings at the centre of our energy systems, buildings as a flexible demand, as we heard from Energy Foundation China. What does a building code need to look like to have those things? Share with us, and we'd like to see what happens. We'd also say that all appliance standards from now on, they need to be future-proof. They need demand response ready requirements. So any examples of these innovations that you have out there, please share them with us, and we'll include them in our repositories of information that we share around the world. We'll include them in our training, and we'll include them in our analysis. And with that, I just say thank you for the collaboration over the course of the last 6 months in putting this whole event together. This is the last event of the last day of the 10th Annual Conference on Energy Efficiency. So thanks to everybody, and have a great and safe trip home, and a very productive year until we meet again somewhere, somewhen, for the 11th Annual Conference on Energy Efficiency. Thank you very much.